Once, a kind woodcutter lived in a small house. It was very old. It sat near a deep, dark forest. The house was made of wood. It sat alone on the edge of the trees. The cold wind blew there. The woodcutter worked hard every day. Still, the family was very poor. The woodcutter was a father to 2 children. Their names were Hansel and Gretel. They were very good and kind. Hansel was a brave boy. Gretel was a sweet girl. She always tried to be helpful. They loved their father very much. He loved them more than anything in the world. The family lived in their old house for many years. They did not have much money for food. Often their bellies felt empty. They were very, very hungry. There was never enough to eat. The kitchen was often silent. The table was often empty. A long time passed. Then the land became very dry. No rain fell from the blue sky. There was no water. Green crops did not grow in the brown fields. The plants all turned yellow and died. There was no way to get more money. Soon, there was no food left in the house. The children began to feel very weak. One small loaf of bread was left. It sat alone on the wooden table. It was the last piece of food. It would not be enough for 4 people. The woodcutter sat by the fire. He was very worried. He did not know how to help his family. His heart was heavy with sadness. He stayed awake all through the dark night. He looked at his children. He wanted them to be happy and full. His wife was not their real mother. She did not have a kind heart. She was a woman with a cold heart. She did not care if they were hungry. She only thought about herself. She wanted to stay alive during this dry time. The woman did not want to share the bread. She told the woodcutter the loaf was too small. They could not feed everyone. She spoke with a sharp voice. She said a difficult choice must be made soon. She did not want the children there. She told the woodcutter a cruel plan. She wanted to take the children into the woods. They would go deep into the forest. She wanted to leave them alone. Then they would not come back to the house. The parents would have enough bread. The woodcutter heard this plan. He felt very sad. He did not want to lose his son and daughter. He began to cry. He loved Hansel and Gretel very much. He shook his head slowly. He told his wife he could not do this. He could not leave his children in the forest. Wild animals lived there. But the wife was very loud and mean. She did not listen to his sad words. She became very angry. She shouted until her voice filled the house. She said they would all die soon. He must follow her plan. She was so mean and loud. The woodcutter felt he had no other choice. At last, he agreed to the plan. His heart was broken into small pieces. The children listen. Hansel and Gretel were in the next room. They were not sleeping. Their stomachs were empty and painful. They were very hungry. They heard every word through the thin walls. Gretel felt afraid and began to cry. Hansel took her hand to help her. Hansel told her not to worry. He had a clever plan to save them. He waited until the house was quiet. He knew his parents were sleeping deeply. He crept out the front door. The moon was very bright in the sky. Hansel saw many small white stones. They were on the path near the house. They sparkled like silver coins. He filled his pockets with the stones. His pockets became very heavy. Then he went back inside and slept. The yellow sun was very bright the next morning. The air was beginning to feel warm. The mean woman woke the children up very early. This was before the birds began to sing. She called them lazy and told them to get up. It was time to go to the forest to get wood. She gave them each a tiny crust of bread. The woman told them not to eat the bread yet. It was a very small piece of food. She said it was all they would get for the day. They must be very careful with it. They all began to walk away from the house. They went into the big, dark forest. The trees there were very tall. Hansel stayed at the very back of the line. Hansel reached into his heavy pocket every few steps. He dropped one white stone on the ground. He did this very carefully. He did not want his parents to see him. He was making a long trail of white stones. The trail was on the brown ground. He looked back at his house many times. He made sure the trail was easy to see. The trees in the forest grew very thick. The path became harder to see. The family walked for many hours. The children's legs began to feel very tired. They reached the middle of the woods. The shadows were long and the air was cool. The woodcutter built a large fire. He wanted the children to stay warm. The woman told the children to rest their tired bodies. She said they must go and cut wood. She promised to come back later. Hansel and Gretel sat by the warm fire. They felt the heat on their faces as they waited. They shared their small pieces of bread. They listened to the quiet sounds of the deep forest. They heard a loud sound like an axe hitting a tree. They thought their father was nearby, but it was only a dry branch in the wind. The branch was hitting a tree. They waited for a very long time. Their father and the woman did not come back. Soon, their eyes felt very heavy. They fell into a deep sleep by the fire. It was very dark when the children finally woke up. The sun was gone and the moon was high. The fire they had sat by was cold. Gretel felt very afraid of the dark. She did not know how to find their way home. Hansel stood up and told her not to fear. He pointed to the white stones. They were glowing brightly in the moonlight. The children began to walk through the cold night. They followed the glowing trail of stones. They walked for a long time. The trail led right to their front door. They knocked on the wood of the door. Their father opened it with a cry of joy. He was happy to see them safe. But the stepmother was not happy at all. Soon the land was dry again. There was no more bread left in the cupboard. The woman said they must go deeper into the woods. The woodcutter tried to say no. The wife would not listen to him. She locked the front door that night. Hansel could not go outside to get stones. He felt very worried about this. The family went back into the trees the next morning. Hansel did not have any stones. He took a small piece of bread instead. He broke the bread into tiny crumbs. He dropped the crumbs as they walked. He hoped the birds would not see them. He made a long trail of bread. He hoped it would lead them home. The parents left the children by a new fire. They told them to wait until the work was done. Hansel and Gretel waited for many hours. They ate some wild berries from a bush. They fell asleep as the sun went down. The forest became very dark. When they woke up, the moon was out. Hansel looked for his trail of bread. The crumbs were all gone. Hundreds of forest birds had eaten them. The path back to their father's house was gone. The children were truly lost. Gretel began to cry very loudly. She was scared and very hungry. Hansel tried to be brave. Still, he felt very scared and alone. They walked for 3 whole days. They could not find the way out. Suddenly, they saw a beautiful bird. It was as white as the snow. The white bird sang a lovely song. It flew ahead of the children. Hansel and Gretel followed the bird. They reached a small clearing in the forest. In the clearing was the strangest house. The walls were made of brown gingerbread. The roof was made of pink sugar. The windows were made of clear candy. The house smelled like a sweet bakery. The hungry children ran to the house. They began to eat the walls and windows. Hansel broke off a piece of the roof. Gretel ate a piece of a window. They were so hungry. They did not stop to think if it was safe. They ate until their bellies were full. They felt happy for a moment. Suddenly, the door opened. An old woman with a cane hobbled out. She looked very kind. The old woman told the children to come inside. She promised them plenty of food. She promised them a safe place to sleep. They went inside with her. She gave them pancakes and apples. She gave them sugar and nuts. They slept in 2 cozy beds. They felt very safe there. The old woman was a wicked witch. She had a very evil heart. She built the candy house to catch children. She wanted to cook them for dinner. Early the next morning, she grabbed Hansel. She used her cold, bony hands. She led him to a cage in the garden. She locked the iron door. The witch woke up Gretel by shaking her. She yelled at the girl to get up. Gretel had to cook food for her brother. The witch wanted Hansel to be fat. The witch checked Hansel every single day. She wanted to see if he was plump. She had very bad eyes. She could not see well. She asked Hansel to stick out his finger. She wanted to feel it. Hansel was a very clever boy. He found an old thin bone on the floor. He held out the bee one instead of his finger. The witch touched the dry, thin bone. She frowned because he was still thin. She did not understand why. 4 weeks passed by. The witch became very impatient. She decided to wait no longer. She would eat him that very day. The witch shouted for Gretel to bring water. Gretel cried and prayed for a miracle. She brought heavy pots to the large stove. The fire grew very hot. The orange flames grew very high. The witch had a mean trick in mind. She wanted to push Gretel into the oven. She opened the oven door. She told Gretel to crawl inside. She said to see if it was hot. Gretel was very smart. She knew the witch wanted to trap her. Gretel stood very still. She said she did not know how to get in. The witch grew very angry. She stamped her feet and screamed. The witch said the opening was big enough. She leaned forward to show Gretel. She put her head into the oven. This was Gretel's chance. Gretel gave the witch a giant push. The witch fell into the hot flames. Gretel quickly shut the iron door. She turned the bolt. The wicked witch could never get out. Gretel ran straight to the garden cage. She opened the lock. She told Hansel they were finally free. The children hugged and danced for joy. They were no longer afraid. They went back into the house. They found boxes filled with gold. They filled their pockets with pearls and gold. They knew gold was better than bread. They left the candy house behind. They walked through the trees.